With SABC News coming to you live from our studios in Johannesburg. Now in this segment I'll be joined by Professor Lesiba Tefo and Ralph Mateja as we'll be taking a look at the country's ongoing commissions. Now the inquiry into the multi-billion rand arms deal will hear testimony from Airforce witnesses this week. At least 3 senior naval officers have already testified, shedding more light on why government embarked on a drive to enhance the Defence Force's arms capabilities. Meanwhile, evidence leaders say some sessions could still be heard behind closed doors, and there's concern over what the Department of Defence has termed highly confidential information. Now, on the back of that, I'm joined from Pretoria by Professor Lesiba Tefo, and here with me in studio, Ralph Mateja. Gentlemen, good evening to you both. It's good to have you with us.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting us.
Now, first,
good evening.
Minister Jeff Radebe, let's start with this. He issued a statement relating to commissions of inquiry. He specifically addressed the issue of funding. So the issue of funding is very much in the public interest. And he wrote how the department has had to shift funds from existing departments and programs to enable it to fund the work of commissions. So surely this shows a lack of poor planning, especially when they know that these commissions will be extended over long periods of time.
Yeah, well, I looked at the statement by Minister Radebe, and first of all, it's important to note maybe the reason why commissions of inquiry come into existence and under what are the powers that the President has. I mean, according to Section 84 of the Constitution, the President as the head of the executive has got the powers to institute a commission of inquiry. But most importantly is that at any time when a commission of inquiry is being instituted, what that means is that the normal processes of dealing with some of the challenges in society cannot be relied upon. Hence, you have to institute this extraordinary framework in the form of a commission headed by a judge, sometimes more often a retired judge, so that it can carry out its inquiry outside the executive. The most important element of this, the main aim of this, is to ensure credibility and to make sure that the truth comes out. So looking at the question, the statement by Minister Jeff Radebe about the funding, that yes, there has not been, actually the statement says that the state has got no obligation to provide funding for the injured miners in respect to the specific commission.
Sorry, but doesn't that show double standards?
Well, the interpretation that comes out in the statement is very clinical. What the minister is saying is that when it comes to Marikana Commission, there are different departments that are involved. You have SAPS, you have got minerals and energy, you've got all other departments that have played a role or maybe could be involved in events leading to Marikana, therefore have to testify. When it comes to the arms deal, therefore, the minister is saying that you have got government acting as a single entity. Hence, any kind of legal representation and funding will be provided to government employees or departments, and representations that are going to be there will be provided through state attorney.
Okay.
That, I think, might amount to double standard when it comes to making sure that there is credibility and a fair balance when it comes to representation in the commission.
Okay, now I just want to bring in Professor Tefo, your comments regarding the funding issues, especially when it comes to budgetary constraints.
Look, at the end of the day, it is the process is as important as the outcome. If perchance it could be that the process would be compromised precisely because other role players, the victims in the circumstances, and others who were to testify in the Security Commission were to be disadvantaged by that, I would try to go an extra mile and seek resources to enable the playing fields to be leveled. To the extent that resources are said to be inadequate or unavailable for those, one can begin to say, at the end of the day, what was sought and intended to be achieved by these commissions may not be realized. If it were, it would be skewed. And at the end of the day, people might say it served the interests of the state rather than the interests, especially of the victims.
Okay, so gentlemen, now with the arms deal, government has indicated that it will avail state lawyers for witnesses, such as former President Thabo Mbeki, former Defence Minister Lekota, and others. But reports are that the former president has wanted his own representation. Do you think his claims are fair?
Well, the former president has objected to using the state attorney, and from the reports that are coming out, the former president has said that the lawyers that have interviewed him and the statement that they've made, state lawyer seems to be disingenuous. And from that point of view, the former President Beg is of the view that he is entitled to his own legal representation, which the state has to pay so that he can be fairly represented in the process. I think that is a sound argument, because as much as the state acted as a single entity during the procurement of the arms, there are different parties. I think it is quite unfair to just lump everyone else who's going to appear before the commission as a person or people who could be represented by state attorney because they will be representing the state. There is a possibility that if maybe President Thabo Mbeki goes with the currently provided legal representation through the state attorneys, he might be prejudiced. He might not be fairly represented as he has indicated, and that I think will have an impact on the credibility and even procedure of the commission.
Okay, Professor Tefo, I just want to ask you, looking at the Marikana Commission, government's made it clear that there's no funding will be provided for the legal team of mine workers. Do you think the commission will be able to do its job properly?
Look, at the end of the day, there is no doubt that the outcome will be achieved, but skewed or with inadequate information that would enable the commission to arrive at a balanced verdict. Now, I would not want to believe that there isn't a way or means that could be availed to enable the commission to perform with adequate resources, with the sole intention to at least arrive at a verdict. Either way it goes, that would satisfy the people, that even if it didn't go in our favor, but at least we have had competent, capable, at least representation that arrived at what it did, and we shall abide by the decision. So already you can hear murmurs of discontent even prior to the verdict being pronounced.
Okay, and if you look at both the commissions, they're set up in the public interest, and it's supposed to be a public process. But there are rumors that a lot of this may happen behind closed doors, and there seems to be very little that the public could actually get out of this because of the delays, because of the constraints, because of the financial issues. So what is the way forward?
Well, the indication that some of the evidence could be led in camera behind closed doors, it's a response to the idea that you cannot publicly talk about how military equipments are being utilized. They're saying that will compromise state security. But I think that should be avoided. If there is a need to protect certain information, that should be done to the minimal, in a sense that this commission came out of a public outcry to get more information about what has happened during the procurement of arms. Once a key evidence is going to be led in camera behind closed scenes, that then might have an impact on the credibility. But I think something quite important as well here is that from what I get, if I read the statement very closely, what it says is that perhaps maybe the evidence relating to the use of the equipment, which is the first leg of where we are at the commission, where you have military officials coming up stating the rationale for buying those equipments and also how those equipments have been used that far, which connects to the reason why we bought them. That maybe could be led in the information relating to that could be had in camera behind the closed scenes. I still think that going forward, the commission should avoid that, and there is no need perhaps when you get to the second leg, when it comes to the evidence that is going to be led by those who are critical against the decision to buy those arms. I think when we get to that stage, a lot has to be in public. At this point, it's just the state's own case as to why we had to buy the arms and also how we are using that. At this point, we can understand that fine, hold certain evidence hear certain evidence in camera, but it should not be the norm. When it comes to the substance of the amount and some of the transaction, it has to be in the public.
Okay, and Professor Tefo, the credibility of the commissions has really been under scrutiny.
Yes, indeed. But let's look at it in this way. Is it really about how the equipment are going to be used, or it's about how they were acquired? Were there people who were unduly enriched or benefited out of this? was there some corrupt activities that led to some people being enriched? I think that is a quick question. I don't think people are more interested in what they are going to be used for. That we could say is a sensitive matter. But primarily, what is in the public interest is, were there people who were enriched through this process? And indeed, the German counterparts have indicated that there was some bribery, there were people enriched, and indeed, there were already people in South Africa convicted on the basis of that. And all the people are asking for is that, can we go to the root of the matter? And remember, this matter was raised in the main by the Honorable Patricia de Lille, and it took almost 12 years to come to this day. And it's all about, was due process followed, or were the process compromised? Were illegitimate gains accorded to certain individuals? And in the court of public opinion, it seems to be the case. And in instances, a few matters were heard in court that same was confirmed.
Okay, now I do want to pick up on that point when we come back, but we're going to have to take a short break. Stay with us. You're watching SABC News.